Hello everybody. In this video, I'm going to show you just a quick rundown of some of the tools that I've created, the plugins that I've created for Vectorworks, and how to use them and some of their features. So just a quick rundown. As of the current updates, they should all work in any scale, not just one-to-one anymore. That was in an original version, but now they should work in any scale. So I'm not even going to bother changing the scale here. Um, Actually, I lied. I am going to go ahead and change the scale. So I'm going to go on over here. Okay. So the first one we'll do here is our audio device. Okay. And so I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit. And so here we go. I click to insert. It will pop up with, in this most recent update, I've made it to where you can access all of the features in the defaults, and so that way if you want to set any defaults in here you can. As you can see, there are a bunch of things, so let's just go ahead and go through this list. Obviously this stuff will appear over in the object info palette, and some of the stuff hides and shows depending on what settings you're currently in, so that way you're not bombarded with all of this information in the object info palette, and we'll kind of see that in a little bit. But so you've got device type, and so you can choose from several different devices: wireless mic receiver, audio interface, Snake, and I/O box, stage box, mixing console, effects processor, amplifier, speaker, and most of these are going to function the same way. It's just a way so that you have a general title at the top, as you'll see in a moment. Amplifier does have some additional features, and so we'll look at that. But let's just go ahead and let's start with a mixing console. Okay, and so that's what it's going to show up as our default. Device type custom. If you don't want one of those device types showing up in there, you can set your own custom title, device numbers in case you use that. And some of the stuff here is actually so that way you can export it to uh, Excel or some other spreadsheet type software if you want to create spreadsheets of this information for equipment lists and whatnot. So why don't I go ahead and show you the rest of this actually over here in the object info palette once we go to use it. So I'm going to hit OK. And here we have our mixing console. Um, again, here's our device, make model, mixing console. And so our device is a mixing console. And so that shows on up here, our device number. So I'll just make this number 1. And a lot of the stuff just updates as usual, or as you type it. Device label, let's call this FOH. And then device label short is again more for your spreadsheets in case you want just a shortened version of that. And so let's call this, whatever, right? And so it can be a Yamaha LS9 32. Okay, and so you've got all this information in here. If for some reason you don't have a make and model, then the device label shifts on down, so that way it's not hanging out in the middle of nowhere. So that will automatically update. Um, Location, again, is more for spreadsheets. Your block width is the overall width of this block. So again, if I want to change it to 2 inches, I can. If I want to make it larger, 4 inches, I can do that. Show I/O. It determines whether it's showing both inputs and outputs, or whether it is just inputs or just outputs. So right now it's set to both, and that way it does show all of your input and output information here. Split type we'll get to in just a second after we've added some things. Your IO label is the width of the label that's going to show. You can have it to where there's a box around it or not. So let's go ahead and jump here to one of the inputs. So I've set it to where you can have up to 4 different input groups, or obviously none. So let's just do a group title here. So let's just call this mic in. And now we've popped up with a little box here. So I can click this and now there's no box and it shifts the size. And then that way, so if I want, let's say 4 rows in this, Now it'll give me 4 rows for my mic inputs, and I'll show you how to put in those mic inputs in just a moment. Now with this, I can do a couple things. I'm going to keep the box just for some clarity here, um, but let's go ahead and put in some input information. To do that, you're going to come over here to Data, and then you may have to drag this down a little bit because you're going to choose from your device inputs or device outputs. So let's start with our inputs. So this will be input 1, comma separated values. So notice here it is number, comma label, and that will become important here. So for this one, we're just going to do 1, and let's call it mic 1. And then for 2, let's not put a number. So to do that, I'm going to have to put just a comma. And then we're going to say mic 2. And then for number 3 here, I'm just going to go ahead and put dot, dot, dot for the number. No comma, it's going to automatically know. And so then let's say that this is 32, comma, no space, mic 32. Okay, now you'll notice that it's not showing up over here because that data is there. You do have to click this little update button and it'll let you know that it is updating, and there we go. And so now if you notice here, we don't have a number here, and that's why this is shifted on over. So you do have to think about how you want to use this, but I do that to give you a couple different options here. So going back to our group 1 label, I'm again comma separated values. So the first one is going to be your label. After the comma, you have T or S, whether you want the label to appear at the top, okay, which it defaults to, or the side. Okay, and then now your label will appear to the side here. Now the reason why it's not showing up is because it does have, it's the drawing order and fill. So I'm gonna actually go on over here, and since we're in none, I'm just gonna go ahead and turn our fill off. I usually use different settings. I'll usually already have a class set up for this. But let's go here to none. Let's just do that. Okay, well, you're not going to show up. So let's go on down here, and good, this is showing me something I possibly need to work out here. So border class is going to be border. Okay, so that's probably why. Let's go ahead and check that on out. So you're discovering some things with me here. Oh, that doesn't have a fill. Group label does have a fill. IO box. Okay, let's go ahead and turn that off. Let's see what that does. There we go. Now it shows up. Okay, so then now, like I said here, you've got your label off to the side if you want that. Let me find it again. Here we go. So my label off to the side, like I said, it defaults to top. So if you don't have anything there, it's going to default to putting it at the top. If you want it at the side, you can do that. The next thing is NL, for number or label. So if you just want numbers only, you can say that. That's where side comes in handy a lot. If not, you can just do mic in with the numbers only, or you can say labels only. Or if you don't have anything, then it defaults to showing numbers and labels. So, oops, didn't mean to delete that. There we go. So again, defaults to showing number and labels, and defaults to showing it at the top. So then again, I can change the number of rows in that group. If I want to add another group, I can do that. And so because it doesn't have anything there, it's not going to show the group yet. And so let's go line in. Okay, now we've got another group. I do have an option here for the space above if you want spacing in between. So let's do this 1/4 inch, and now it's going to space it a 1/4 inch. Again, I can set, let's say there are 8 rows here, and so now it automatically grows with how many channels that you say in there. It will, though, because it will look at the first 4 here and the next 8 when we go to data. So that you just have to keep in mind here. If I type something in here and I just go 1, line 1, again, I got to go back to shape and say update. okay? But if I go back here and I change this now to 5, notice my number shifts on up. So that's a future update that I'm thinking about working on to be able to have those automatically shift or give you extra spaces in there, but I haven't quite worked that out yet. So just keep in mind how many are in each group, and then you've got to adjust in your data row. So then same thing comes on over here. If I want to do outputs, I can do the same thing, and I can say 1 omni 1. Okay, I've got to go back here and again update. And it doesn't have a label, which is why it's not showing up. So let's do omni. And oh, it's not showing up because I have nothing in there. So there we go. We've got 1. Um, and again, you can do the same thing whether you want it to appear at the side. If you only have one thing there, side's probably not the best option for you. So let's go back to, let's do it to where there are 5 of them in there. There we go. That looks better. If you want side and number only, again, you have that flexibility. It automatically changes with you. Some new features that I have in here, it does allow you to change the font. And so you can select from several different fonts that I've put on in here. And then you've got all the different classes. It will automatically create some of these classes, but then this way it allows you to set colors and whatnot and be able to customize some of the things on in here. And so just play around with them to see what controls what. Some of the stuff I default to not having a fill, and that way it doesn't happen what happened. We don't have what happened earlier where you can't see something. But again, that's something I've got to play around with, and I will investigate maybe in a future update. So that is the device. Now, a couple other things with this. Maybe we're not doing a mixing console. Maybe we're actually doing a, come on, an amplifier. So now with the amplifier, we do have a couple other features on in here. And so we have the amp style. Block will act just the way the last thing we just did. But if we change it to symbol, then we get those symbols and we can get this block information on in here. If we don't want the block information, we just delete them. But if we want the older style where you've got the triangle for the amplifier symbol, you just tell it how many amp channels. You've got a 2-channel amp. You've got a 4-channel amp or however many channels. Do you want space above? It is comma separated, so if you want additional space above just between the second and third one, then I'm going to go comma, comma, right? Because the first one would be before the comma, then so it would be 1, right? So first one, comma, second one, comma. Now before the third one, let's put a 1/4 inch in there. Don't put the inch symbol, it will default to inches, and there we go. So it added that space on in there. Um, if you want to label them in any particular, it defaults to showing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but what if I want A, B, C, D? I can do that. So you can change your label types. And then you choose your amp mode. So right now it'll default to single channel, but if I want to do parallel mono, so that'll be the starting one. But okay, here we go, parallel mono. And now it'll change to parallel mono. Now, if I want this one to continue to be parallel mono, I can continue doing that, or let's change it. Let's make it bridged. It'll automatically change to the next one with you. And so it will give you default errors. So like if I put 70 volt here, it's ignoring it because it sees the one before it is bridged. But let's change it to 70 mode. Yeah, here we go. Now it says, oh, wait, there's something else is going on here because it sees bridged here. So you just got to go in and fix that because you told it you had 4 amp channels. So yeah, there you go. So show IO. What if I just want inputs only? I can do that. If I just want outputs only, this works for not only an amp. I meant to show you this with the other the console, but you can do amp inputs or outputs or both. And then this here, split type, allows you to do a break line. So if I want to break at the bottom, it'll do the break line style, or you can do the curved bottom in case you have this item in two different places. You can also, so for the show, yep. So if I go here and I say break side, it's not going to do anything because we are showing both inputs and outputs. But if I say input only, now it'll show the break line on the output side. If I go to output only, it'll shift it over to the other side. Um, or again, I can do curved, and so it'll do the same thing. It'll say, okay, output only or input only. And yes, the amplifier lines don't necessarily line up. I wasn't necessarily intending for that to be there, but for that, you might want to just go ahead and choose a curved bottom, and that way that indicates that they're in multiple places. Another thing that you can do here is you can also have bottom connections. So if you've got not inputs or outputs, but say network connections, you can select how many, up to 4. It will evenly space them across there. And so, if you've got Ethernet, right? Oops. Right. If you've got control, okay, and again, you can change however many, and it will add those on in, or you can say that there are none. And so it does leave a space for them. So lots of customization that you can do in here. So a couple other things before I get to the cables. You've got audio speakers, and so let's go ahead and add one of these in. Again, those are the defaults if you want to set some defaults there. You can change whether it's an active speaker or a passive speaker. Again, you can set speaker number, the label, short label, make and model. You can change the font, and then you can change the classes for several of these different things. So if you've got it, two different particular text styles, for instance, what I'll do sometimes is I'll have my text number 2. Let's go down here and let's change it to a dark gray. And so then now anything that's assigned to text 2, so let's do this here, right? And so then now anything that's assigned to that text 2 has a different text color. If you want to add some, you can add them just like any other classes. You can add them from there. And so you would just go here and you would click here and just say new class, or assign it to whatever the rest of the symbol is assigned to. Um, so that's the audio speaker. You've got the same thing with a microphone symbol. And it looks like it already added one for us. Let's go ahead here and delete it. So similar things here. Similar to the speaker, you can change text, the class of some of the text and whatnot. If I want a microphone transmitter, this actually lumps a couple things together. It has that mic symbol along with the basically a device there. And so then you can set in if you want to put in your frequency or not. You can say, do you want to show the wireless symbol or not? You can change that. Do you want your symbol to be a bolt or the arcs? So you've got a couple different options in here. You've got offset from the origin. So we can shift that on over. Oops. Nope, I wanted 1 inch. There we go. So 1 inch versus 2 inches, right? And it spaces it for you. You can change the block width. And so a lot of things that you can kind of play with here. This does reference the microphone tool. So you do have to have the microphone tool installed to use this one. Let's see, fly off we're going to get to in a moment. You'll see fly off in the audio cable break line when we do this next one. So let's go to the audio cable curve tool. This one is a fun one. So let's go ahead and we're just going to draw a path that we want our cable to take. So here, we can come back, we can go here, we can actually even go at an angle if we wanted to. And so then now let's come on up to here. And then now let's go straight up here and now over. I know it's a roundabout path that we took here. And then double click at the end to, looks like I went up a little bit and that's why that's popping up. Let's change that. So here, come on down, on over, down. We'll come up at an angle. We'll come down at an angle. Here we go. We'll come straight on up. And there we go. So it will automatically create curves to go around what you've done. It will automatically insert the text on in here. And so let's look at a couple things here. So whether it's a balanced audio cable, you can have a category for that. You can insert cable length, make and model if you want that information. If you want to change your arc radius to be 1/8 of an inch, you can do that. So it's a tighter one, or if you want 1/2 inch and make them larger, you can do that. Um, Snake and partial cable we'll get into in a little bit. Those partial cable you can actually do quite a bit on. So let's do partial cable. Is there a break at the start, a break at the end, or both? So if we want to do start, then it asks you what type. Is it a break line? And so then it's going to use that break line tool, and so you see the little squiggly break line. If we want to do a fly off, it's going to add in some other information here, and so now it's going to give the little fly off symbol. And so let's do A, and let's do, I'm just going to type in some text here. And so now it ends up putting in this text. Again, you've got control over the classes with that, so you can change what the color and whatnot of the text. And so that's the fly off tool. Again, that references the fly off tool and uses that. So you do have to have that installed. So now let's go ahead and maybe I don't want a fly off or a break either way. And so I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of that. Do I want to show the start connector type or not? Do I want to show whether it's a plug or a socket? It defaults to the default, or you can go ahead and tell it what to do, whether it's plug or socket. Do we want to name the start connector? So let's label it 1 or 25 or whatever we want to label it. And so it will append that to there. Same thing with the end connector. We can do the same thing there. If I want to change and have it be a custom type cable, right? It'll change that on in there. And then this is one thing, this middle label will take a moment to kind of refresh. So you can always hit update or just change something else and it'll refresh and reflect whatever you put there. Do you want to show the mid-text segment? If you do, which segment do you want it? Right now it defaults to the second one, but what if I want it on the third, or if I want it on the fifth? So you can change where it is. If you want to shift it one way or the other, you can say, okay, move back a 1/4 inch on that segment. So you have adjustment options. Do you want it on the top or do you want it on the bottom? And then you can change what information is there. Do you want just the type? Do you want just the length? Do you want the short label that you end up typing for it? Do you want all of this information in there? So again, you can choose, you can change the font of all of this, and then you can also change the class. So the text for the class, or sorry, the class for the text. The device itself, whatever you inserted this cable in, whatever class you inserted it in, it's going to be in that class, and you would change that on up here. So if you want to do a cables class, right, you can do that and set your line weight and line type. Make sure you click use at creation. Right, so let's do our line weight. Let's do a little bit heavier there just for the fun of it. Okay, and so then now that changes. It will default to putting the text in that class, right? So I'm going to go on over here. I'm going to say my text 1. Let's go ahead and go to, actually, text 1 was fine. I know what it was. It was because I had fill on my cables. And so it's putting the text in that class. So I'm going to do no fill. Right, and so then now that information doesn't fill, and so then you know what? No, I want that text to be black, and I want my cable to be blue. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to say let's make it text 1, and there we go. It'll be whatever I've set for text 1. So like you can see some neat things that you can do in there. You can move stuff around. You can play with it. And there you go. And that shows, it looks like all of the different tools here. This is an older version of the cable tool. It just made sharp corners. But there you go. So those are the different tools that I've kind of created for for Vectorworks, and I'm always adding some more. I've got a couple more on the list that I'm looking to do, possibly one for Patchbays. But those are on the list when I get some free time. And if you have any comments or suggestions, whatnot, send me an email, cpyfro1 at gmail.com, cpyfro1 at gmail.com. And I'm happy to get any feedback or any feature suggestions that you would like. So thank you. Until next time.